Ko taku manuhiri nai ko Nicholas Poynton is in the studio to talk business. Let's start with this FMA kind of list of do's and don'ts. This is for influencers, like social influencers, but specifically in the financial sphere,
Yeah,
is it?
the FMA, I don't know if they're responsible for this term, but if they are, I have to give them kudos for it, because they've used this term called finfluencers. And finfluencers, as you alluded to, are social media influencers who provide financial advice despite not necessarily having the legal right nor the qualifications to actually do so. And the regulator has decided to take this step and release a set of guidelines, sort of do's and don'ts really, about what people should be doing if they encounter this or if they're talking about investing finance money online, because this trend has really been on the rise in the past year really. And
So what, people checking into Instagram and someone saying... invest your tens of thousands of dollars XYZ way.
Well, I think it goes hand in hand with the rise of retail trading apps and the various platforms like it, because it has really gone a long way to democratise investing. And with the apps, you've probably seen people who've had a degree of success, and with that success maybe comes an overinflated sense of one's ability with these platforms. Then they may consider themselves experts, but that's not necessarily, a way to sort of discourage people from seeking advice and things like that. There are people out there who do know what they're talking about. But the FMA's advice on this is that yes, it's okay to talk about finance and money and investing online, but the information, the discussion should really be at a general level, because if it slips into the highly regulated areas such as recommending specific investment funds, stocks or insurance, only registered financial advisors can actually legally do that. And the FMA has gone some way to provide some examples of what would be above board and kosher, and they use the example of saying to someone something like, look, governments are rolling out the COVID-19 vaccine around the world, stocks and tourism companies and airlines, which were badly hit by the pandemic, now would be a good time to think about buying into them. That's okay, that gets the green light from the FMA, but you could run into trouble if you said something like, buy shares in airline X, the tourism boom is happening. When you step into that area of being quite definitive with your speech about this, you do run the risk of falling into trouble. But the FMA, just given from the way they're talking about this in their release and our interview with them today, they're not necessarily looking to be heavy-handed on this. They're not going to try and regulate what people are saying online. They say that they've already reached out to a number of people who may have engaged in this behaviour before, and trying to be very educative with their approach to this. Try and bring people along with the conversation. The more people talk openly about investing, they think it's probably a pretty good thing. Okay,
what's going on with the business finance guarantee scheme? Just remind people what it is.
One of the various measures that was unveiled last year in response to the pandemic, and this was specifically to help businesses, small businesses, and it was to help those businesses that may have struggled to get sort of credit or any sort of cash flow into their business because they may have sort of extended all their current debt facilities they had with their banker. So the lending was actually administered by retail banks, but what made it different was that 80% of any loan was actually guaranteed by the Crown. So the banks felt empowered to give out these loans. And now by most accounts, when this scheme was first introduced sort of midway through last year, it wasn't very popular. It seemed that the eligibility requirements were actually quite strict. In August, only about 780 firms had accessed it, about $150 million worth of debt. So the government take a number of steps to actually expand it. Businesses could now, after they made changes, access a loan of up to $5 million. It's an increase from $500,000. The loan term expanded from 3 to 5 years, and actually bigger businesses were now eligible to apply for this sort of credit. And it was at this point that Business New Zealand's Chief Executive Kirk Hope says that this is when the scheme became a lot more effective for those businesses that were having some cash flow issues. And it winds up on Wednesday. The latest figures show that about 3,300 firms accessed it. They tapped into about $2.8 billion, which is a significant increase from where they were in August with the scheme. And it appears that demand for credit was highest amongst wholesale and retail trade businesses. And when I put that to Kirk Hope, his view was that those disruptions to supply chains, firms wanted to get credit into their businesses to sort of offset the sort of disruptions that was creating. And unsurprisingly, Auckland had the highest demand for all types of credit. Not really surprising, given it's the real powerhouse of our economy. So it's the centre of it. So it comes to an end. There are a few more schemes like this that will see sort of what sort of support they've been able to give businesses, but this one by some accounts seems to be quite successful.
Should we take a quick trot around the markets?
Yeah, the NZX is down 22 points to 12,603. The dollar at 70.7 US cents and 93.12 Australian.
Thanks, Nicholas. Nicholas Poynton with Business.